Okay, so allow me to set the stage for this tutorial. Or rather, let's create the stage for this tutorial. Basically what we're going to be doing here is creating a stage curtain. And it's a really cool effect. I actually saw it on my iPhone. I downloaded an application recently and it had a cool graphic of a stage curtain with some cool lighting on it and everything like that. And I thought that was very, very cool. And that's what we're going to create here. So, I'm going to start with a new document. And just so you know what I'm working with here, this is an 8x6 at 125 pixels. And if you are working with print or anything like that, do be aware you'll want to work at higher resolution, and the settings we use may vary, so be aware of that. So to get started, let's go ahead and create a new blank layer. And I'm going to go into the toolbar, grab my rectangular marquee tool, and I'm just going to draw a narrow selection, the total height of my document, but only a small section of the width. And inside that blank area, I'm just going to press Shift-Delete, and we're going to fill with 50% gray. And we'll go and deselect. And let's go ahead and lock that transparency. And we're going to go, now before we go into the filter menu, let's make sure that we have our default colors set to their black and white. So it's right over here. Just press the D key on your keyboard. Then let's go into the filter menu. We're going to go to Render Fibers. And you can see right here, let's zoom out here. The fibers have been applied, and I'm going to set the variance to around 10 here and keep the strength at around 20. Now, if you don't like the configuration you've got here, you can simply click Randomize and get a different arrangement or distribution of those fibers, just like this. And I think I like that one, so let's go with that one. So I'm going to click OK, and there it is applied the fibers. So now we're going to take this, I'm going to press Command or Control T to bring up the free transform, and I'm just going to take the side handles and just push this to the sides. Basically, it expands that graphic out looking like that. Not looking all that great, but we're going to fix it just a little bit. Now, with it resized, let's go into the filter menu and go to Blur, go to Motion Blur. And we do want to make sure we're doing a 90-degree angle, straight up and down blur, and give it a good size blur. And here I've got about a 600 pixel blur going, and I think that looks pretty good. You could probably take it down a little bit. Yeah, I think about 500 might work pretty good. And that looks pretty nice. Almost looks like a curtain. Not really, but almost. So let's make it a little bit more realistic. I'm actually going to add a color here. Let's go ahead and create a new blank layer beneath this layer. I'm going to hold down my Command key and click the new layer icon, and that will drop a new layer beneath this active layer. And I'm going to select this rather dark red color right here inside my swatches panel. Press Option Delete. It's going to fill that layer in. And let's reselect the fibers layer. And we're going to change the blend mode from normal to multiply. And now it's starting to look like a little bit of a curtain effect here. Pretty cool. Well, let's continue on and add some lighting effects. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new blank layer above that one. And again, let's press Shift Delete and use 50% gray. And we've got the full gray filled layer. Let's go into the filter menu once more and go to Render Lighting Effects. Now, let me go ahead and toss this since we can see what's going on here. Now, by default, when you open this, you're going to have one light inside here. So I'm just going to reposition this. You can grab the handle and reposition the overall position of the light, and you can grab these outer handles and reposition the light out here. So I'm just going to position this one up here as if there were a stage light kind of coming in from the top corner here. And I'm going to add a second light over here on the other side. You simply go down to where this light bulb graphic is and just click on it and drag into the preview, and it will add a new light. And by expanding out the side handles here, we'll increase the intensity of the light just like that, giving me what looks like a beam of light coming in from the side. I can increase the intensity manually over here if I want. And we'll just modify these lights a little bit, giving me an interesting lighting effect coming in from the top corners. Let's expand that out just a little bit more. Okay, so once that's all done, we'll go and click OK, and we've got the lights. I'm going to go ahead and change the blend mode of this from normal to overlay. And you'll start to see it's giving me a little bit more directional lighting in here. It's giving me much more subtle lighting and gives it a little bit more drama to it. And if you wanted to intensify that, you could duplicate that layer and change its blend mode to perhaps soft light. It will make the light a little bit more intense, but lose a little bit more detail in the curtain. So you have that option, but in this case, I'm going to go ahead and leave this just like that. So, almost there. It's going to add a couple more things here. I do want to add a kind of a cool sparkly effect in here. So let's go ahead and create a new blank layer. Select the brush tool, and I'm going to open up my brush menu here. I'm going to go to the flyout menu. We're going to choose assorted brushes. And you can go ahead and append it to your existing list. That's fine. And what we're going to look for is a cool kind of sparkly effect. This little thing right here. And if you drag and hold over it, yeah, let's go ahead and select that. And what we get is kind of a cool little sparkly. Well, got to change a few things. I don't want it to paint in red, so let's reverse that and paint in white. And let's change the behavior of the brush here a little bit. So I'm going to open up the brush options, activate shape dynamics, and make sure the size jitter is all the way up to 100. And I'm going to activate scattering, and I'm going to have it scatter pretty good. Let's do it at about 725. Both axes is fine. And let's just see what we got there. Okay, that looks pretty good. I'm going to take the spacing up a little bit. Let's do it to about 40. And that's inside the brush tip shape area. So I think that looks pretty good. I'm just going to increase the brush size itself a little bit by using my right bracket key. And let's just go in here and paint some random stardust, in a sense. Now, that looks pretty good. But let's go ahead and add a layer style to it to make it a little bit more interesting. I'm going to double click on that layer's preview. And we'll open up the layer style menu. And let's activate outer glow. We'll go in here and give it kind of a more yellow color. And I'm going to take the size way up. Not too far up. Just enough so it's got a little subtle yellow glow going on there. I think that looks pretty good. And I think I might have a little too much stars going there. So I'm going to grab my eraser tool. Probably would normally grab my layer mask, but I don't really need to since I know I'm going to be erasing this stuff and not bringing it back. And if I wanted to bring it back, and I always just grab the brush tool and just paint it right back in. What I want to make room for is the text graphic I'm going to put inside here. And for the text graphic, I've actually borrowed from my retro text tutorial I did a couple weeks ago. If you saw here on Planet, it was a really cool text effect where using smart objects and filters and things like that. So I borrowed that technique and created this little graphic to add to my little stage graphic element here. So not only do I have my retro text going on here, but I've got a cool curtain background to add it to. Very cool stuff. Now, only have to add one more thing. When you're thinking about curtains and stages and things like that, what do you think about? Spotlights. So let's go and grab our elliptical marquee tool. On a new blank layer, I'm just going to drag out a circle. Hold down that shift key so it constrains the proportions of it. Now, let's not make it too big. Let's deselect. Let's drag this out and make it relatively small. I'm going to fill that with white. I'm just going to, since white is my foreground, I'm just going to press Option Delete. And let's apply a very small blur to it. Let's go to Filter, go to Blur, Gaussian Blur. And we'll do about a 5 pixel blur. I think that looks pretty good. And let's simply change the blend mode to overlay. And if I grab my move tool and just move this around, look, it's showtime at the Apollo. No. But I could, I'm just moving this around manually right now. I could go ahead and take my animation panel and animate this and give it kind of a cool kind of Hollywood stage light effect. But point here is the actual curtain in the background and all these cool effects in there. So just simple use of a filter you wouldn't normally probably think to create this sort of effect, using fibers to create a curtain effect right there inside Photoshop. Very cool stuff.